and the other branch with a knot and a flower. So in the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick, and in the candlestick shall be 4 bowls made like unto almonds, with their knots and their flowers. And there shall be a knot under 2 branches of the same, and a knot under 2 branches of the same, and a knot under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that proceed out of the candlestick. Their knots and their branches shall be of the same, all it shall be one, beaten work of pure gold.
Okay, how many branches do we have?
6 branches.
6 branches, and then there's one that stands in the midst or the middle that represents Yahusha Mashiyach. But it's very important to understand this should all be of one work. One work, all right? So we have the menorah here. Now, with continuation, with Revelation, the 1st chapter, verses 12 to 20, let's compare that now to Zechariah, the 14th chapter. We're going to start at verse 1. Now, what's interesting here, because we're about to get into something. How many menorahs did we see the Father giving Moses to make? How many menorahs? Because there's a lot of controversy that's going on in the book of Revelation. But just based upon reading Shemot, the 25th chapter, verse 31 to 36, and it's nothing hard. It's just one, right? You see one, all right? All right, great. Zechariah, the 4th chapter. Zechariah, the 4th chapter. We're aiming at something here. Try to walk through it. There's a lot of controversy with this. 1 through. Let's go down to 14. 1 to 14, if I can, please.
Zechariah 4.
Yes, yes. Please pay very close attention, because there's something that's being revealed to John the Revelator, and it is very important. This menorah speaks volumes. Probably one of the most set-apart pieces of furniture that Moshe was told to make. This menorah is serious, extremely serious. Zechariah, the 4th chapter.
Zechariah 4, verse 1. And the Malachim that talked with me came again, and waked me as a man that is wakened out of his sleep, and said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick, all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are upon the top thereof.
How many menorahs did Zechariah see? 1, right? In Exodus, all right, we have now the 25th chapter. It talked about 1 menorah. This is a vision, all right, that Zechariah is seeing. All of this now is based upon, okay, in time prophecy. Watch how we do this. Read on.
Verse 3. And 2 olive trees by it, one upon.
Okay. You see, anybody see what just happened? We have a menorah, and we have 2 olive trees, all right, beside this 1 menorah. All right? Okay. Read on.
Upon the right side of the bowl, and the other upon the left side thereof. So I answered, and spake to the Malachim that talked with me, saying, What are these, my sovereign? Then the Malachim that talked with me answered, and said unto me, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my sovereign. Then he answered, and spake unto me, saying, This is the word of Yahuah unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might, nor by power, but by my Malachim, but by my Ruach, saith Yahuah of hosts. Who art thou, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shoutings, cryings, and esteem unto it.
Okay, so this is now talking about an actual event at that particular time. Watch how now the prophecy comes in, because understanding prophecy, just like what we had brought out, was in Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. Can you bring that out for me, please? Because a lot of people, when reading the scriptures, they believe now that once this happened before, it can never happen again. And that's not how scriptures operate. We should never look at it that way. If we have too many scriptural supports to share with us now, is that as Moray is about to read, and we actually did a little contest where you wasn't there, and I said whoever was able to guess or remember the very first scripture that you brought out in class about maybe 2 weeks ago, that person would actually now win the opportunity of driving your car for the whole week. And we had Parash, she got the right answer, so she's waiting for the keys. I mean, after service.
It's all right, we'll get it fixed.
So Leo,
Oh,
okay, no problem, all right.
yes. The thing that has been, it is that which shall be.
Uh-huh.
And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun.
Hallelujah. So that's going to be like the national anthem. The national anthem. Read on. Zacchaeus, please.
Verse 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zechariah 4, verse 8. Moreover, the word of Elohim came unto me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it.
Uh-huh.
And thou shalt know that Elohim, or Yahuah of hosts, have sent me unto you.
Jump down to verse 11. Let's stay on one point here.
Then answered I, and said unto him, what are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick, and upon the left side thereof? And I answered again, and said unto him, what be these 2 olive branches, which through the 2 golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves?
Verse 12. I'm sure our Chief Moray has already done a class on this. Verse 12 is very important. These 2, okay, olive branches have a function in regards to the menorah. Because we'll talk about this a little bit later, the importance of this beaten oil and what this oil actually does in its function now towards the menorah. Now, it's said now that these 2 branches now, and we're going to do just the base stuff for now. Their purpose now was to keep these bowls now filled with olive oil. But we need to identify now who are these 2 olive branches. Read on. And why are they called 2 olive branches? All right, read on.
Verse 13. And he answered me and said, knowest thou not what these be? And I said, no, my sovereign. Then said he, these are the 2 anointed ones that stand by Yahuah of the whole earth.
Wow. So we're getting some clues here of what's going on here. So real good clues. Then said he, these are 2 anointed ones, okay, that stand by the sovereign of the whole earth. Now, Romans, the 11th chapter, verse 16. Romans, the 11th chapter, verse 16, and we're going to read 17. 16 to 17. 11, 16 to 17.
Romans 11, verse 16. For if the first fruit be spiritual, the lump is also spiritual, And if the root be spiritual, so are the branches.
Right now, verse 16. Here we go. For if the first fruits be set apart, the lump also is set apart, the whole lump. And if the root be set apart, anybody know who would be the root here? Because we're talking here now agricultural principles. These are agricultural terms here. So again, for if the first fruits be set apart, the lump is also set apart. Who would be or what is now the lump?
Yahusha? I mean, Abraham. So if the Yahuah, the Yahusha be set apart, right?
So
That would be the first group.
so if the root be, as a Mashiyach,
Mashiyach,
then the rest be,
be
Okay, so for if the first fruits, if first fruit be set apart, Israel is considered first fruit, all right? If first fruit be set apart, the lump, the whole lump is also set apart. And if the root be set apart, also are the branches. I am the vine, you are the branches. So here, now we have, for example, we have the menorah, all right? We have the Mashiyach. This is actually fed now by the root. And if the root now is set apart, it can only produce the leaves, the stem, the branches, all of that now can only be set apart because the root is set apart. It's growing in what we call good ground. Good ground, all right?
So who is the root?
Who is the root?
well, remember,
Mashiyach?
Right.
yeah, remember it says in Revelation, he's the root.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said, I'm the root of David. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then you got that centerpiece, he says, is the center part is called your rock, right? Which is called the body.
Uh-huh.
So he's the root, he's the body, so his body. Oh,
No, I'm good. Yeah.
So what is the lump?
okay, so.
What is the lump? The first fruits of the children of Israel, what is the lump? Is the lump the word?
The lump would be like the whole thing.
The whole, like the body of Israel or like the world?
But,
No?
Okay, 16. For if the first fruits be set apart, the lump, okay, if we have the Greek number 5445, let's see, any substance mixed with water and kneaded, a mass, a lump of dough of clay. So what we're trying to share now is that the whole lump, the whole body, if the roots now is set apart, we're talking about the whole congregation, all of it, because it's coming from the root. Anything that's coming from the root, because the root is set apart, because before anything can grow, it must start from the seed. The seed now gets its strength and its nutrients from the minerals and nutrients that's in the ground. So when it starts to spring forth, anything that's coming from out of the ground because of the root, all of it, the whole lump is all set apart.
Oh, you're just saying like the whole body of the okay, I see what you're saying.
Right.
yeah, but so it can be viewed like this here. If he's saying, for example, that if the body of the root is set apart, right? Then of course the branch is going to be Chadasha, right?
Right.
So if the branches are flesh, and the same thing, if anyone that takes hold, the lump can be also, anyone that takes hold of that root.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Gotcha. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Verse 17, Zacchaeus. Oh, read 16 again. 16 again. So everybody's on the same page.
Romans 11, verse 16. For if the first fruit be set apart, the lump is also set apart. And if the root be set apart, so are the branches.
So that's very important, that word branches, all right? Branches, branches, branches. Remember branches. Verse 17.
And if some of the branches be broken off,
Which is a question now. We have a problem. If some of the branches be broken off, read on.
and thou being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree.
Okay, right here. And if some of the branches be broken off, what's another word that we can use for broken off?
Cut off.
Cut off,
Separated.
divorced, estranged, no longer part of the root. Okay? And we're talking about here now an olive tree. Now, if branches are broken off, and we see Zechariah now, and even in the book of Revelation, it talks about a menorah, but it talks about 2 olive trees. The reason why there's 2 olive trees is because of you go.
It's just like,
Yeah, it's easy. You know, it's real easy. But again, when we begin to look at this now from a Hebraic perspective in agricultural terms, because we were an agricultural people, so that the way that the Father is actually talking to us now is through agricultural terms. So at one time, now remember, the roots being set apart, the whole branches, everything is now set apart. But something happened with one of the tribes. That tribe was given a bill of divorce. So if something is broken off, it is also synonymous now with being divorced, estranged, no longer a part of it. Now, but this was interesting. In verse 17 now, even though Northern Kingdom or these branches were broken off, they're called a wild olive tree, right? A wild olive tree. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The set-apart place where the Father placed his name at was Jerusalem. During the time of the Mashiach's ministry, only Southern Kingdom, for the most part, we were still intact. Northern Kingdom did continue to grow, but they were growing now outside of the Promised Land. And being that they were growing outside of the Promised Land, they was taking root now in a soil that was not compatible to the soil in Jerusalem. So now this now makes them a wild olive tree because they were growing set apart from the root.
now could we say that about us at this point?
Oh, I mean, eventually what happened to Northern Kingdom happened to Southern Kingdom.
Right.
Northern Kingdom was given the bill of divorce, and the Father said, keep it moving, get up out of here. And then we have now understanding, prophecies and dates and things of that sort, and and all of that. We know what happened in 70 AD. Then Southern Kingdom was also given an eviction notice.
Right.
You got to go too. All right. So right now the land is laying barren until the original inhabitants now is not returned back to the land. This is the reason why Maury is always teaching. It's like a national anthem. Don't get comfortable here, because this is not your home. The place that the Father placed his name at, when you go back to the book of Genesis, the 12th chapter, the 15th chapter, it begins to tell, the Father's telling Abram that I've given you an heir, or I've given you an inheritance, and he told him the boundaries of where this place was, and we know this place to be Jerusalem. So now you have both houses now that is actually growing in a strange land. But what we found interesting here now, when you begin to look at agricultural terms, is that you can take, for example, an olive seed and plant that olive seed, and eventually, it'll start to germinate, and, they said use about 7 days, but you start to get an olive tree, a bush or whatever. But you can also now take an olive branch, just a branch, okay? And you can take that branch now, because it's of the same nature. You can take that stick or that branch now and actually split it. And now you just attach it, mend it with some type of, what would you call that? It's a type of tape, agricultural tape. And you can tape it around it, and it'll actually start to grow. It'll start to grow again. So again, I just found all these things interesting, but remember, even though Northern Kingdom was given a bill of divorce, they was still an olive tree, but it was called a wild olive tree. All right? Yes, Ezekiel, you have something?
Oh, no, I just see what you're going. Well, I was saying,
Oh, okay, all right, hallelujah.
Tanak.
Okay, Yahuah. Now, these, witnesses, in the book of Revelation, the 11th chapter is talking about these witnesses. We need to know who these are. That's when a lot of controversy begins to happen. If we kept everything in its proper reading, all right, just keep it the way that it is. Because a lot of times when you read Romans 11th chapter, when we start to see the word Gentile, all of a sudden a person might, it switches. And it is like, we're talking about everybody. But if you kept it in proper alignment, and if you can identify that these branches is actually an olive tree, and we're going to read it. Okay. Elijah, the person, okay, or the spirit or the ruach of Elijah. Very important. Elijah is coming back, or the spirit or the ruach of Elijah. All right? And it can be one and the same too.
So could the understanding then be the branches that were broken off, that have been grafted back in, be understood as Israel, because the word for grafting in horticulture is Zion.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Zion, or as one would say, the word Zion, so it will mean that then those wild branches is no one that was broken off, and now they all be considered in horticulture terms Zion.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Point number 1 in Revelation 11 chapter verse 3. If you can read that for me as I can, please. Yep. Revelation 11th chapter verse 3. We're just going to touch just on that one.
Revelation 11 verse 3. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth.
Right, so we already went through the whole thing before. Why are these witnesses now prophesying for 1,260 days, 42 months, in sackcloth? Why are they doing this in sackcloth? Sackcloth represents mourning, repentance. We see Yahuah, the Mercer also in camel skin, and he was also talked about sackcloth, and he talked about repentance and coming back to Torah. Now this is the thing that I found, okay? We have our mores here, we got our chief more, we have our executive more, we have Zakane here, we have Rob Aluf here, so we have a lot of super scholars here, all right? A lot of super scholars. So I'm up for the correction, you showed me what's wrong. My point is, the witnesses of the Father of Yahuah are not described as any 2 particular men. Because when they said my 2 witnesses, a lot of times what comes to mind is are 2 particular people. I have not found that. The witnesses are described as olive trees, is what I saw in Revelation 11 chapter verse 3. And I have some scriptures to prove that. Let's go to the book of Malachi, the 4th chapter, verses 5 through 6. So my argument is that these 2 witnesses are actually northern and southern kingdom. The book of on Malachi. Watch how we're going to do this here. And we're not going to do no Christian higamajiggers and bending up scripture. We're not going to do that. But watch, read verse 1. Let's see what we can get out of that. 5 and 6.
Malachi 4 verse 5. Behold, I will send you Eliyahu or Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahuah.
Okay, so behold, I will send you Eliyahu. And Eliyahu was a witness to the Father for the nation of Yashra'al, especially he was a Tishbite living amongst northern kingdom Israelites. But whenever the Father is sending a messenger to the nation of Israel or anything, these people now are acting as a witness. This is what they're doing now. Eliyahu is a witness. And so, behold, I will send you this witness, which is Eliyahu, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the sovereign. Read on.
And he shall turn the heart of the fathers of the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse.
Okay, let's compare that now with the book of Luke, the 1st chapter, the 15th verse. And all of this now is going to take some time. That's the reason why I'm going to have to slow it up a little bit. This is all dealing with end-time prophecies, Mr. Carr. I know we went kind of hard the last couple of weeks when we talked about the first and second plague. And I'm going to show how, when you look at the trumpets and the vials, some of them now are working side by side. But there's not really I didn't find like a chronological order in the way that a lot of it is happening. But we went through the first trumpet and the second trumpet, first vow and the second vow. We went to 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, and 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter. And it was kind of graphic, real graphic, all right?
Did they say that in the book of Revelations, that how it's set up, all the bowls and all the seals were set up to how it would happen, so how they would normally light a menorah would be the same way in prophecy. So if they took from the rock from the body and light the farthest one to the right, and then there was the farthest one to the left, and just go in. And that's how the chapters were set up to show how they will come back to the center, or they will hinge on the body of Mashiyach.
Right. And actually what happened was Moray had actually shared that. Remember you had talked about how it is actually lit also